And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers, you, Pam, you can have a seat if you want, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Promoting our schools, securing our future, as we do twice a year, 20 schools, over 20 schools a year, thanks to our friends at CapEd Credit Union and Team Mazda Subaru. Coming up, Peter Wallison will join us, talking about his new book, The Last Chance to Rein in the Administrative State, Judicial Fortitude. We'll talk a little bit about what the president is doing on that, plus taking your calls about the issues that matter to you, and, of course, finding out about the great programs here at the College of Western Idaho. Always looking forward to coming back to this successful university. And when we're talking about CWI, of course, we're talking about opportunities at an affordable price, and that is so crucial these days as we're rolling here. Are we waiting for Peter Wallison, or is that at 6:10? Okay, I got it here at 6:05. So we will go to Pam. Pam, thank you for joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. Pam Hodges joining us. She's the head of the Nursing Assistant Program. She's got a class today at 8:30, but she joins us now so early. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
We'll get you up a little closer right here. Okay. And Chandler, let's pot up her mic and get a little closer here. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about your program, ma'am.
Okay. Well, it's a nursing assistant program. It's the foundation for students to get their certification. It's the nursing assistant program prepares by educating in ethics and teaching activities of daily living. I always say that the nursing assistants are the eyes and the ears for the nurses. It's a job of compassion and heart. They're needed.
Well, and it's also a job of science and chemistry and all those sorts of things.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of training that goes into it. You just can't throw anybody in there. Not only are we talking about the empathy that you need, the heart, the compassion, but also the science and the chemistry background, right?
Right. That's important.
Well, how stringent is your program here? Describe it for us, please.
Okay. Well, it's 120 hours. And we have all different modalities. Students can take the, online classes and do the theory part. It's a hybrid class. They do the theory online, and then they can do the skills 4 hours a week for 11 weeks. We also have a fast-track class for those that need to get out into the workforce quickly. Also, high school and college bound.
Well, let's examine this fast track. What does that mean?
Okay.
That means, is that like NASCAR?
No, not quite. But they do 12 hours a week instead of the 8 hours a week.
Okay.
And so they get finished in about about a month and a half. They can be finished with clinicals and everything. And so they do their theory face-to-face, and then 32 hours of clinicals in a skilled nursing facility.
Now, why do we need so many nurses?
Oh, boy, because I think our population is booming, and also, the gray-haired tsunami has hit.
The gray-haired tsunami?
Yes, baby boomers, and we're living longer. And so we need more healthcare providers and healthcare.
So when we take a look at what type of job somebody can get after completing the program here, how does that help?
Oh, there's a lot of options, and there's jobs out there. There's in the skilled nursing facilities, long-term care, assisted living. There's home health. There's hospice. There's also hospitals that are hiring CNAs.
And a certified nursing assistant. So what would that pay, you would think?
It doesn't pay enough, I don't think. That's
right.
My own personal opinion, but anyway, usually they're starting out $9.50 to $11 per hour.
Well, that's good, and benefits and such.
Yes.
All right, Pam, I'm going to ask you to stand by if you would.
Sure.
All right. I don't know. You're not going anywhere this time of day, are you?
Well, not till it's time to go to class.
Not till 8:30. So you're going to be with us.
Yes.
I don't know. It's almost like you're sending me the whatchamacallit here. You're sending me. You're my celebrity co-host this morning.
Oh, well, thanks.
There we have it. All right, Pete Wallison joining us now from the American Enterprise Institute, Judicial Fortitude, his new book. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
Hello, Peter.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Well, we're throwing you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
All right. The wonders of technology, sir, here on KIDO Talk Radio. So let's talk about the title of your book, The Last Chance to Rein in the Administrative State. Hasn't government gotten too big that it's impossible to control it?
Well, yes, that's one way to describe the problem. But more specifically, what the book tries to do is to explain why the administrative agencies of the federal government have gotten too big and how they can be controlled and brought back within some kind of foundation for this for the government. Right now, these agencies are simply out of control because the courts have refused to rein them in. And I think that now, with 5 people on the Supreme Court who are constitutionalists, we will start to see the beginning of an effort to control these agencies.
Well, and even the president talked a little bit about that by looking at creating a 5% cut in the budgets for next year, right? Is that a start?
Well, those are for the entire government, and that would, who knows where those cuts would be used within those agencies. The cost of doing regulations is very, very small compared to just the employment costs of the people who are doing them. And maybe if enough people are cut from the agency's budgets in response to the president's request, there would be fewer regulations, but I doubt it. Over the last 25 years, in every year, there have been more than 3,000 rules and regulations coming out of the agencies of the federal government. And that amounts over this time to over 101,000 rules. Now, maybe you can cut back some of those rules by cutting back the number of employees, but it's highly unlikely. The problem here is that Congress has given these agencies too much authority, and the courts have not stepped in to protect the Constitution by insisting that whatever authority these agencies receive, that the judges are given the opportunity to determine whether they are exceeding that authority. And so we have a lot more that can be done than simply cutting the budgets of the agencies. We have to look into the legal aspects of what they are doing.
Well, I love this. So we've just continued to create new rules.
Yes.
And so many rules, but do we ever enforce them?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, they are enforced. And I'm sure many of the people who listen to your program have, for example, been surprised to find that ponds on their land are subject, which they thought were just on their land, are subject to government regulation. And that comes under things like the Clean Water Act, which was very general about what the EPA could do about the water in the United States. And they have used it, or attempted to use it, to cover many things that most constituents, most people, weren't aware of. And so the result of that has been a lot of protest and a lot of concern. But the question is, was the administrative agency, EPA, given too much authority by Congress? And
well, how does that work? How does that work with the Constitution? How could Congress do that? Number one, and number two, for someone that's listening right now, maybe their eyes are a little glassed over. How does that impact their lives specifically? Listening right now, maybe in Kuna or in Mountain Home. Well, some of the crazy rules.
The first point is the Constitution requires that all of the laws be made by Congress. The rules and the specific rules can be made by regulatory agencies, but they have to be made under standards that are enacted by Congress. And for years, since 1984, when the Supreme Court announced a particular decision, which we can talk about if we have the time, the administrative agencies have been largely free to interpret the scope of their authority. So what happens is that the agencies then have gotten a lot of the authority of Congress to make laws. That is a violation of the Constitution, which says very specifically that the legislative authority of the United States is vested in the Congress. So once Congress passes this legislative authority to administrative agencies, then we have the agencies with authority that the Constitution initially said should only be held by Congress, elected by the people. So once the agencies have this power and begin to use it, they use it according to the priorities of the agencies, which are largely the priorities of the people who live right around Washington, D.C., because those are the people who are in the agencies and who run those agencies. And the thing that bothers me and caused me to write this book is that we really have to start getting control of these rules so that the people of the United States are actually having more of an effect on what these agencies do than they do now. And the reason they don't is that Congress is handing authority to administrative agencies without restricting what the agencies can do with it.
Well, Peter, what would be the action point then?
The action point would be the Supreme Court going back to review and change a case that was decided in 1984 called Chevron versus NRDC, in which the Supreme Court told lower courts when an agency is challenged on one of its regulations and it insists that it has the authority to do what it has done, you should defer to the agency's interpretation. That is, the court should defer to the agency's interpretation of its own authority if it seems to the court that it's reasonable. That's not the way the system was supposed to work. The system was supposed to work in this way, and that is Congress delegates some authority to the agency. It is constrained, that is to say there are standards that Congress puts on that authority. If the agency exceeds that authority, a court should interpret what the agency is doing and decide whether, in fact, the agency has gone too far. But under this Chevron standard, started in 1984, we see exactly what happens, and that is the agencies have huge latitude to exceed the authority that they were originally given by Congress, to use it for new purposes, and that's one of the reasons why we have 101,000 regulations and rules since 1993. So that's what this is about. We have to restore the way that the Constitution originally intended. Congress makes the rules. It makes rules that the American people wanted to make. That's why it's given all legislative authority. The agencies can fill in the details, but they can't go beyond what Congress has actually authorized.
Well, Peter, we appreciate it. How can people get a hold of your book?
It's easily gotten on Amazon. If they can go to Amazon, it should be in most bookstores. But if it isn't in a bookstore, you can easily find it on Amazon.
Well, Peter, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Okay, we are back here at KIDO Talk Radio. I believe there's someone outside if we want to grab them. At College of Western Idaho, our great friend Pam Hodge is joining us once again. So the Certified Nursing Assistant Program, what happens if you can't afford it? Are there any help for the students at all?
Yes, so there's a great opportunity that the Idaho Healthcare Association has secured. They've gotten a grant for $500,000, and this grant will pay for the education for a caregiver that's working in a skilled nursing facility to have all their education paid for. And they will be giving a $500
Right.
$500 for staying with that facility for about 6 months, I believe it is. Retention.
Sure. If you're interested in the program, what should you do?
Well, they need to apply at a skilled nursing facility, a long-term care facility, and ask about the grant. They can also call the Idaho Healthcare Association. Jenny Moorman is the grant coordinator, and she will be glad to help people through this process. And her number is 208-343-9735.
Well, thank you very much. Pam, we appreciate it. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Traffic and weather together.
Larry Gibbert.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Appreciate you listening. A lot going on here today. Obviously, the president doing his Western tour, and we have a lot of folks that have decided to go visit him, and that is so inspiring. And, we're continuing to partner with folks to try to bring the president here to the Gem State. And whether you like the president or not, it is always an honor to have the president in our state. One thing, though, that a lot of people are looking at is, the lottery. Was there a winner?
People across America are pouring into stores to buy a chance at tonight's nearly $1 billion Mega Millions jackpot, eager to cash in on their dreams.
I would instantly retire.
I would go to Tahiti.
I would pay off my house.
Tonight's Mega Millions is the second largest in U.S. history, behind Powerball's jackpot worth more than $1.5 billion in January 2016. And experts say if you win the grand prize, don't rush in and claim it, because only 6 states allow you to remain anonymous. So safeguard your ticket and get some professional financial advice first. Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
So let's face it, it's going to be the largest item ever when we're talking about the Mega Millions. And what attorney, what person could keep you anonymous? It just, it's not going to happen. All of a sudden, you're going to have a bank account that's loaded. And when we take a look at the lottery, and so many people play it, and at work we used to have an office pool, and what does that say, I guess, about our lives, our jobs, or what have you? Philosophically, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, where we're looking to get that instant gratification. And look, I will admit, like a lot of folks, that I thought about playing the lottery, and nobody wants to, as they say in the stock market, the fear of missing out. And that causes us to buy tickets. And then we have a lot of people that buy the tickets. And one of my favorite sayings is, I'm going to go buy tickets so I can tell my kids, grandkids, total strangers that I lost $1 billion. Well, I did lose $1 billion because I didn't win the money. But so did millions of other people. And yes, the lottery, it does go to education. But in reality, would we be better off if we didn't have these delusions of grandeur? I mean, you take a look at the great people here in the Treasure Valley that have made it. We were talking earlier about Micron. Micron would not be here if it weren't for J.R. Simplot and 3 or 4 local businessmen that put their money together to do the unthinkable, to beat the unbeatable, and for years lost money. Now you have Micron, the largest private employer, and you hope that Micron will be around, or they're going to continue to adopt this globalist view, and whether moving jobs to Taiwan, which they're doing, or creating this $6 billion infrastructure in Virginia, their new facility there. And maybe it's not $6 billion, maybe it's only $1 billion. But what I'm saying is these exorbitant figures, how many people can relate to it? And whether you're a person of faith or not, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, you just sit back and you think to yourself, is it really worth it? Would your life be enhanced significantly if you won the lottery? And coming up, we'll talk to Barb in Sunny Slope. We've got a lot going on today. We're at one of our favorite places, College of Western Idaho, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things here today. We heard about the nursing program. We'll hear more as we continue to start your day on the right side with Kevin Miller. Our time is 6:30 on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And our friend Barb in Sunny Slope will speak with you. Also, we'll talk to our friends here at the College of Western Idaho. Always a pleasure to be here at CWI and the great work that's going on. One of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing community college in the country. Just some of the good work's going on here in the Treasure Valley. Joining us now from Washington, D.C., exclusively here in the Treasure Valley, Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So the president's a traveling man, hanging out in Montana in the West. We're still trying to get him to Idaho. And in between, he grabs his other traveling partner, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and says, hey, what's going on with Turkey and Saudi Arabia?
That's right, because Mike Pompeo was just off a kind of an emergency diplomatic visit to Turkey and Saudi Arabia all over Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi-born journalist who is feared dead, and President Trump said that he believed that it looked like he had been killed, and that it was becoming increasingly likely. Authorities are believing that Saudi Arabia was behind this, and if they did, it would be brazen to lure him essentially to their consulate in Turkey, and then do it there. Turkey is a NATO ally. And then try to blame it on Turkey. Turkey is pointing the finger at Saudi Arabia. And the president is saying if it's found to be true that Saudi Arabia did this, that there would be consequences. The question is what? And we're talking about sanctions. We're talking about this $110 billion arms deal the president announced in May of 2017. You'll remember that was his first official visit as president. He went to Saudi Arabia. And look, the president likes shiny things. And there was all the grandeur of the palaces and the glitter there. And then, but the president says he doesn't want to really put that on the chopping block because that could hurt U.S. contractors like Boeing and Lockheed, Kevin.
Right. He did mention as you just mentioned, Rachel, that multi-billion-dollar arms deal. I think that's the first time we've ever had an American president equate the economy and jobs to human rights. It's a tricky picture, which is getting a lot of, well, we'll just say, we'll serve it up to you, unique reaction in Congress and throughout the world.
Most definitely. You would think this would come down to party lines, but it may not. It could be a partisan battle when they come back. They're out right now in recess. They're not expected to get much done ahead of the midterms, let's face it.
Right.
But then we've heard from both sides. Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican who basically is in line with the president but does call him out on occasion, has said that if Saudi Arabia is found to be responsible, he thinks they should be punished in any way possible. But then when follow-up question was, what about the arms deal, he kind of waffled on that a little bit. And so you could have a kind of a mixed bag of reaction, or you could have Republicans in opposition to President Trump if the president wants to stand by the arms deal. But the president may make a good point there, and that this could affect jobs. Then there's been others saying, well, this arms deal is overinflated. Where's the numbers? How do we know it's actually going to add up to $110 billion? Is this over a period of time? There's been some questions surrounding this arms deal that was announced in the first place. I think most people can agree that it might be important to send a message on the world stage that U.S. allies, if they hack up journalists in a NATO country, that's not something that we can just look the other way about. However, I mean, I don't need to tell you that the United States relations with Saudi Arabia have been complicated for decades, and that often administrations would look the other way at the Saudis' activities to keep things in line. They just gave women the right to drive, of course. I mean, this is an absolute Islamic monarchy. They don't have a parliament like Great Britain does. It's just this really insular society that is still very different from our own.
Well, I'm glad they're not rushing into things, because once they drive, who knows what they'll let the women do next, Rachel.
Well, I think they still have to cover up when they do drive.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, it's different society there and different way of doing things. And again, the United States and our own interest we've been able to look the other way when it comes to this. I mean, they've been dropping U.S.-made bombs on Yemen and killing people. There's been all kinds of things that have been questionable that Saudi Arabia's been involved in, but it's complicated. When we pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, Saudi Arabia agreed to step up oil production, so that's tough. And they last week said, hey, United States, if you slap sanctions on us, we're going to shoot oil up to $400 a barrel. I mean, that could translate into like $14 a gallon. I mean, that's probably not going to happen, but that's what they were saying.
Rachel Sutherland, always on the case. We always love your reports. I hope you have a good weekend, but you always work.
You too,
so.
Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. Barb and Sunny Slope, we're going to get to you in 2 seconds. Joan Weddington joining us now. We are at the College of Western Idaho. She's an instructor of the Nursing Association of Science program, and we can talk about the newly licensed LPN program here. Joan, thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Do
you do this every morning? This is early.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's. I don't know if it's a calling or a curse, but I'm just grateful to have a job. And jobs are big in nursing.
Absolutely, and well, in all healthcare, absolutely. But certainly, the projections for not only Idaho but for all states, there's going to continue to be a great demand for healthcare folks. And that's why we're excited at CWI to offer an LPN program. And the LPN program will be 1 calendar year. Our first class starts in January and will graduate in December. So it's a 3-semester, so spring, summer, and fall semester. The cost is about $7,000 for the entire program, which is an incredible value. And certainly less expensive than a lot of programs. And it's also, the other advantage is that it is geared towards working people. So the classes will be in the evenings, and we even are looking at having some Saturday classes. So people can continue to work. And that was in response to the industry in our area, and also the Idaho Department of Labor said, hey, can you do this? Started in 2016, and so we are excited to respond to the needs of the community as expressed by industry and the Department of Labor.
Let's go to the LPN. When they graduate, what type of money will these folks be making? Because, look, I drive by all the time.
Right.
CNAs, LPNs, RNs, everybody is looking for nurses.
Right, absolutely. The average right now in Idaho, it's about $42,000 a year for an LPN. And, of course, healthcare waxes and wanes and changes. And so, but right now, $41,000 a year, which is a terrific salary, certainly a livable salary. And someone who invests $7,000 for their education can certainly get a lot of return on that.
Well, and, we were talking earlier about the baby boomers continuing to get older. And
Careful. I'm a baby boomer.
No, look, I just turned 50 this year, so
Okay.
I got my AARP card, so I'm very sensitive to that.
No, you get 10% off.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm all over that.
I saw this big card, and I'm like, hey, all right.
I know. As you get older, you get less humiliated about that because the benefits outnumber the humiliation.
But and you get to an age where you can finally say anything.
Yes, yes, which is a perfect job for you. So there.
We go back to this.
Although I've been doing that for a long time anyway, it hasn't always served me well.
Somehow I'm not surprised.
Okay.
But we see all these medical facilities building more hospitals, nursing care facilities, and that primarily is where the LPN would go? Or
Absolutely. You've done your homework. Absolutely. Right now, and again, healthcare is always changing, but right now, the areas that we expect most of the LPNs to work would be in long-term care. Correctional health care hires a lot of LPNs, certainly clinics, and home health agencies, hospice agencies. LPN is just a really good fit for those areas. Right now, hospitals, acute care, there's really not as big a demand as there is in those other areas. But who knows? Healthcare changes all the time.
when we talk about the rigors of the program,
yes,
what is the tale? People listening right now,
sure.
Knowing you guys, you probably have a full class already,
Right.
But what will go? What's the curriculum for a year?
Right. What's the plan for torture?
You're right. You're right.
I know. The first semester, again, that would start in the spring. The first semester is fundamentals, and that's the basics. Things like taking vital signs and just learning how to interact and communicate with people. That's 6 hours. We also, again, there's a lab component to that. So that is kind of a nice way to ease someone into a program like an LPN program. The summer is a bit more rigorous. They have a lot of hands-on experience in our community, which we've had tremendous support from the community and saying, hey, we'll be happy to let your students come and work with us for a semester. So summer semester will be challenging, will be demanding, as it should be for people who are learning to take care of other people. And then in the fall, when you see the light at the end of the tunnel, then things like we go into more of transition to practice so that people kind of ease into the profession. So it's certainly manageable, but as in all things that are valuable, it requires focus and some effort.
Well, Joan, we appreciate you, and thank you for joining us so early.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin Miller in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Our time is 6:47. Let's go to Barb in Sunny Slope. Hopefully, Barb, you're there. If not, I'll try and duck and cover. Barb, good morning.
Good morning. No, I'm still there. It was very interesting listening to all this, though. Even Rachel Sutherland, which I always actually like listening to, and thinking that Saudi Arabia needs $110 billion worth of weapons, and I'm thinking, what are they going to be doing with that? That doesn't sound good to me. It just doesn't.
Well, she was a chatty Cathy this morning. Sometimes she's busy, but, she was really into the Saudi Arabian story, you could tell.
Well, I'm actually very interested in it myself. It is something that is grabbing me, this whole I can't pronounce his name, Khashoggi thing. I mean, I remember Daniel Pearl is happening with him, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is just horrific. But anyway.
But Barb, we brought up that point yesterday. You're right. Where was the outrage over Daniel Pearl? Yes, there was shock, but we weren't saying let's gather the troops and go get ISIS. We just took the administration's word on that.
That's true. That really is true, and it is. I don't know why we're more wrapped up in this one. Certainly, it was just as horrific as what happened here, and which is just unbelievable what they're doing.
Well, and getting back to the administration state, this is right up your alley, right up Tom Munz's alley. When you think about, this is what they're always talking about, the Constitution versus the rules and regulations that continue to inhibit our daily lives here. It is fascinating. What Peter was talking about, 101,000 rules that have been written by the administrative state?
Yes, and I thought of one, and it affects me. You said, how does this affect the average person? And I love my job, and so I will just keep doing my job because I love my job so much. But here's an administrative rule that came down that is, adding to my job, which, again, I don't mind doing. We have, I work on an orchard. We have 200,000 trees, okay, which is nothing compared to what one of the other orchards out here has. But so one of the things that came down on an administrative rule by an organization that is supposedly watching over food safety, this is a food safety thing, is that they need to know exactly how many trees are in each one of our rows. So I'm going to have to go up and down every row of trees and count how many are in each row for 200,000 trees. So, and you cannot tell me that there is a reason for food safety reasons that it makes a difference whether there are 43 trees in this row and 45 in the next row or not, or whether we're missing one died, and yet
one got away.
One got away, yeah. And I love doing my stuff, so I'm going to be happily doing it. But as I was driving up and down the rows and counting tree after tree after tree, I'm going to have to do this for 200,000 trees. I just was irritating me that I'm not doing it for the orchard's sake. I'm doing it because some Washington person has determined that it is necessary for food safety to know how many trees are in each row on the orchard. That really bothers me. It also, we have to be sure that the ladders are this way, spinning this way, and not laying that way. this is food safety, and they really get freaked out about that. The one I love, the rule that they have that I absolutely just is, and I love, I say that very sarcastically, is they came to us and they said, we would like you to mitigate the birds that fly over the orchard. Can you imagine that? They want us to regulate where the birds are flying? I mean,
or what the bird's dropping. Barb, I got to run, but thank you.
Okay, so there's your reality example of this whole thing that this guy wrote on.
Well, look,
Thank
you
you
counting trees and regulating birds, that's what we call security for your employment security. So look at it on the bright side.
I will do that. Thank you so much. But we need to get rid of this government. Anyway.
Oh, my goodness. Well, she was just kidding, everybody. Just kidding.
No, I don't mean, I meant the regulation government. That's what I meant.
There we go. Words have power. I'm just looking out for you.
Where's that power? Yeah, I'm going to go with John Birch on Society on this one. You know,
all right. Once a Birch, always a Birch.
Thank
Barb, thank you. Good morning. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget, Good News Treasure Valley, brought to you by Zamzo, celebrating so many years of serving. Good News Treasure Valley. Hey, it's Friday, number one, and the PBR's in town here in Nampa. Hope you get a chance to check out the wonderful PBR, the toughest sport on dirt, by the way. Thanks to Ed's 50s Cafe in Meridian for hosting us yesterday. Before we get to Hank, let's get to traffic and weather together.
It's Eric Gebert.
And let's go to Hank in Boise. Hank, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Hank.
Good morning. I might point out the Crown Prince, and there's, of course, no such thing in the Middle East as good guys. They're all bad to a certain degree. But he is trying to negate the influence of the Wahhabi sect in Saudi Arabia. For instance, you were talking about the rule about women not driving. The Crown Prince is looking at relieving some of these things. And this is sort of the thing that the Brotherhood of Islam, which is where Stokes is coming from, are opposed to. In other words, the Crown Prince is trying to mediate some of the extremism in Islam because, in a sense, the future of the area, if they're ever going to be able to get out of the stagnation and be able to join the rest of the world in prosperity, they're going to have to modify the extreme aspects of Islam. And the Crown Prince, and I'm saying that just like Trump, you may have elements within the Saudi security and whatnot who are sympathetic with the Wahhabis or opposed to the reforms, who are, in a sense, trying to sabotage or implicate the Crown Prince. I don't know if this is true, but I think the possibility has to be considered.
Hank, great call. Thank you. Good morning.